Good morning, everyone. Today is a great day for Arizona. With the signing of this budget, we have shown Arizonans that we can reach across the aisle, compromise, and make government work. I want to thank Director Joan Service, Bill Moreland of CAS, and Dana Kennedy of AARP for joining us here today. From day one, I made a promise to Arizonans to deliver a budget that moves our state forward and makes meaningful investments in our communities. This budget is an important step towards making housing more affordable, building more roads, bridges, and broadband access, expanding children's health insurance, and investing in our public schools. I've heard from Arizonans across the state about the anxiety they feel when thinking about whether they'll be able to afford a place to live. I spent my first few months as governor visiting communities that have been given new hope, and I've seen firsthand how the government can step in and change people's lives. Projects like Centerline in Glendale and Sparkbox in downtown Phoenix are a direct result of investments in housing. These projects are exceptional, and under my administration, I will make sure they are not the exception. That's why I'm so proud that this budget includes $150 million deposit into the Arizona Housing Trust Fund. This is more than double the largest ever deposit that's been made, and I'm so proud that we were able to deliver that. These funds will be used to finance additional affordable housing projects, prevent evictions, and develop new shelter facilities, each of which are crucial to addressing the current housing crisis. Projects like Saluna, where we're standing today, are exactly the type of developments that we can build when we invest real money into dealing with our housing crisis. We are creating jobs, growing businesses, and bringing in talent from all over the world that sees Arizona as the center of our country's economic future. But we must ensure that even as Arizona booms, it stays livable for every Arizonan. That means making these critical investments in housing, and that means building the roads and bridges and broadband infrastructure that our state needs. That's why our bipartisan budget includes a $650 million investment in that will move the needle forward on these issues. This money will go towards major projects across the state, including widening the I-10 and extending State Route 24. This investment also makes meaningful commitments to our rural areas, who for too long have been left out of the conversation. I've traveled to these communities and seen firsthand the results of inadequate funding. Unsafe driving conditions, sparse internet access, and outdated buildings are far more common than not. With the money in this budget, these communities can finally be on the road to a better future. As a social worker, I strongly believe that a healthy Arizona is a strong Arizona. Our state has one of the highest rates of uninsured children, leaving many parents unable to care for their families. The health and safety of our children is a top priority of my administration, which is why our budget also includes an increase in kids' care eligibility that will expand access to health insurance for approximately 12,000 children by 2025. Arizona families deserve access to quality, affordable health care, and I'm so proud we are able to deliver that for them. I hope that this is just the start of increasing access to healthcare for Arizona families. These are just a few of the major investments we've undertaken to improve the lives of everyday Arizonans. While this budget is not perfect, it is an important step forward for our state and for the working people who will have an affordable house to live in, new roads and bridges, and access to healthcare for their kids. To be here, signing my first budget into a law over a month before the deadline speaks to the promise that I made to put partisan politics aside and deliver for Arizonans. I know not everyone got what they wanted, including me, but I am grateful to the legislative leaders who were able to put their differences aside and support a bipartisan deal. And with that, I'm proud to hand this over to Director Service to discuss the historic Housing Trust Fund investment and what our $150 million deposit will mean for affordable housing in our state.
Thank you, Governor Hobbs. Good morning, everyone. What a great day. My name is Joan Service, and I'm the Director of the Department of Housing. I'm so pleased to be here today celebrating this huge win for housing in our state. First initiated by Governor Hobbs' budget request for $150 million into the Housing Trust Fund. And a supermajority of our Arizona legislature agreed, acknowledging our state's housing affordability challenges and improving this historic investment. The Housing Trust Fund is the state housing department's most flexible source of funding, providing match and leveraging resources needed to access and utilize federal housing funds. After extensive community stakeholder outreach, we anticipate these funds will be used to bolster rent and utility assistance programs, eviction prevention, and for repair programs to keep people stably housed, and to leverage public-private partnerships to bring shovel-ready projects to occupancy. Additionally, the bipartisan budget will put $60 million towards homeless shelter and services. With Governor Hobbs' leadership, we can build affordable housing, tackle the housing crisis, and help alleviate homelessness in our state. Today, we're here at this beautiful affordable housing community, Saluna, which is an exact example of the housing this investment can create all over the state. I can't wait to get to work helping Arizonans secure safe, stable, and affordable housing with this historic investment. And I thank Governor Hobbs and the legislature for recognizing that building in Arizona for everyone means that safe and stable housing are essential to do just that. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Moreland. I'm the chair of the board of CAS, the Central Arizona Shelter Services. I'm also honored to serve on the board of the Human Services Campus. I worked with the City of Phoenix on their strategies to address homelessness task force. And I also am one of the founding members of Madison Pioneers Coalition, a neighborhood group in the area near the Human Services Campus. I am so excited to be here today to talk about this incredible investment in the future that has been included in Governor Hobbs' budget. The fact that she was able to get this kind of support and this kind of action through in her first year, I think is an amazing testament to the governor, her dedication, and her willingness to work across the aisle in order to get things done. She came to CAS in March and she told us that she was going to do something about housing and homelessness in a way that the state had never done before. And man, did she deliver. So we have never seen this kind of an investment before. So, the enormous investment in the Housing Trust Fund is one thing. This is also the first time that there has been anything like $60 million dedicated to homelessness. That is an issue that states like Phoenix, Mesa, Glendale, and many others have dealt with more at the local level for many years. So it's incredibly exciting to see that the state is now becoming more of an active participant in this, and that the state is doing everything that they can in order to help us address this. This is not an issue that just affects the cities. It is not an issue that just affects Maricopa County. It's an issue that affects the entire state. And more than that, it's an issue that affects the thousands and thousands of people that are living on the streets unsheltered right now who don't have someplace to sleep tonight. So the $60 million is going to help that. It's going to give people who are sleeping on the street a bed and a roof over their head. So CAS is dedicated to a society where everyone has a place that they can call home. And I feel with this budget, like Governor Hobbs has shown, that she is committed to exactly the same thing. And I thank you for that.
Good morning. My name is Dana Kennedy, and I'm the state director for AARP Arizona. This is an absolutely historic day, and in my 8 years of being the state director, this is the best budget that I've ever seen that addresses senior issues. As we all know, homelessness has sharply increased over the years, and today in Arizona, seniors represent the largest group of people experiencing homelessness for the very first time. When I first started, I was invited to go to CAS by Lisa Glow, and she showed me the shelter, and where seniors were sleeping on the floor. And she said, I need help advocating. We need a shelter for seniors. So we've been advocating for that shelter, and we got a pilot project during COVID, pilot that was Senior Safe Haven. And what many people don't realize is this shelter was actually in North Central Phoenix. and it was actually across the street from where I lived. And you noticed an increase in traffic of seniors crossing the street to get to the bus, to get to where they needed to go. So this budget addresses those issues, and it also, for the first time, brings money and resources for people for dementia by having a state plan for dementia. We know that Arizona is actually one of the largest increases per capita of people getting dementia for the very first time. And this budget addresses that and provides some resources for families and members. It also increases funding for home and community-based services to the area agencies on aging. So I really want to commend the governor for putting these resources available and addressing the seniors issue. In Arizona, 1 in 5 people are 65 and older. So this budget addresses those needs. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to start Q&A. Right there.
Governor, what do you think you'll see the transformation of that $150 million into new affordable housing, into the $60 billion that will actually help homeless people? When do you think is a reasonable expectation for that to all be implemented?
Well, I'll defer to Joan if she has more specifics. I'll just say we didn't get here overnight. It's going to take a long time to get us out of it, but this is a significant step forward.
Sure. I will say that last year's budget included a $60 million investment, and the Arizona Department of Housing put that out on the streets within 7 weeks. But it will take some time to solicit community feedback. This is a significant investment, and as we all know, there's some challenges with housing development, with construction constraints and labor and the supply chain issues. But we anticipate having significant momentum going right out the gate.
Can we use this, if we use this where we are today as an example, from the time it got approved, built, and folks are now living in it, what was the time frame?
I apologize. I'm not sure if anybody from Gorman can speak to that, but it was and this is an example of both the Arizona Department of Housing and the City of Phoenix investing significant dollars to make this a reality. Sally, can you speak to how long that this project took? Sally Schwinn.
Hi, Sally Schwinn. I'm Arizona Market President for Gorman and Company. So this project was actually funded back in 2019. So it typically takes about, it's a balloon, it typically takes about 24 months from when we're funded to get through all the design and construction, and then once we build. So this project opened up last April of 2022.
Yeah.
Governor, I wonder if you can speak to, you spent weeks negotiating the budget with Senate President Peterson and House Speaker Toma. Why not ask them to consider your nominees? Like, why not ask them as part of the budget deal to get your nominees for agency heads through?
I don't want to get into the specifics of the negotiations. We are still having conversations about our nominees. They were just not part of the budget discussion.
Governor, there's a lot of stuff in this budget that you're proud of, including the funding that you're talking about today for housing. But there are a lot of folks in your own party who are unhappy both with the result and the process that got us there. What's your message to them?
As I've said over and over again, and I will continue to say, this is a perfect budget. Get everything I wanted. Republicans didn't get everything they wanted. It's a compromise budget that we negotiated that got through the legislature with a super majority of votes. And we are here in the middle of May, which nobody thought we would be.
You negotiated this budget primarily with the Republican leadership in the legislature. When did you make the decision to have that negotiation with the Republicans and not bring the Democrats in until?
We've been having conversations with Democrats about the budget since early in the session. So that's just not an accurate reflection of how this all took place.
Governor, at the risk of asking the same question and hopefully getting a different answer, you vetoed the home cooked foods bill, the tamale bill. It contains disclosure, training, everything else. You said you didn't like it. What do you need to sign that bill?
We are working on a compromise on that bill. I'm hopeful that it can get back to my desk, the sponsor and folks working on it are clear on what our issues were with the bill.
But but what was missing from the bill that went to you?
I'm not going to relitigate what we've already been through. So.
Governor, what more would you like to see happen with housing this session? Obviously, there's a bipartisan group of lawmakers that have been working on the kind of a package of bills for a while. Some of it would require kind of stepping on the city's toes and overriding their wishes to make it easier to build more housing. Is that something you're willing to do, and what would you like to see in that legislation?
I mean, true to form, I'm not going to comment on legislation that's moving through the process, but we are certainly watching it, and I think there are some things moving that have, majority support.
Are you willing to go against some of the city's wishes and kind of override what they'd like to see?
I'm not gonna tell you what I'm gonna do on those bills right now.
Can we just talk about the complex? How much is this going to transform our landscape, literal landscape, especially down at the zone, and with our homeless population? How much is this going to change things?
Well, as I said, we didn't get here overnight, and we have significant challenges when it comes to housing affordability and homelessness. It's going to take a multifaceted approach, and this makes a huge investment to move us forward on that.
Governor, there's, unlike in past years, the legislature didn't go to sine die right after passing the budget. There's a few major pieces of legislation sort of still in the process. The housing bill that Jeremy mentioned, there's Ken Bennett's voting rights bill, or let's just say elections bill.
Drag shows.
So, there's a number of things still on the table. Can you say what are your priorities for the time left in the session?
Certainly 400E is something that we're still in active discussions about as it's moving forward, and that's a huge priority for Maricopa County, but not just for the region, for the whole state.
Well, that raises a question.
What can you do to
to the-
encourage lawmakers to move?
Let me ask about 400, because you mentioned that. I saw that the House repassed the bill that you vetoed on the residential rentals taxes. The word is that you're willing to sign the new version to get Prop 400.
I'm not going to go into the specifics of how we're negotiating on that bill.
Thanks.
Governor, I just want to get back to the appointments. What was the thinking there? You didn't ask for any kind of agreement with the budget. This is where you had most leverage.
I didn't say we didn't ask. I just said it at the end of the day it wasn't on the table, and we're having separate conversations about that.
Why didn't you demand?
We're having separate conversations about that.
All right, great.
Governor,
Right there.
you or Dana Kennedy perhaps describe a couple of the tangible ways seniors will be impacted by this center. Is there a specific center that's being built? Where is it at? And how will this money be dedicated for homeless seniors?
I mean, do you want to talk about Project Safety?
Yeah, I can.
Well, I mean, I'll just address that there is Project Safe Haven that's supposed to be opening next month, June, July. So we're hopeful with that. There's also additional money for to address the shelters. We're hopeful with that. Do you want more information regarding other things in the budget, or just?
Yeah, in terms of, will this help some seniors transition into rentals? How specifically will it help seniors who are homeless today?
So do you want to talk
Yeah,
about the
I
trust fund?
Yes, so I can speak to that. So with the $150 million investment to the Housing Trust Fund, as well as the $60 million investment into the Homeless and Services and Shelter Fund, it will support existing programs that are it'll build upon capacity to outreach and support seniors either that are unsheltered or, as Dana mentioned, who are experiencing homelessness for the first time. The Housing Trust Fund will be programmed in a way that will support those seniors that are currently stably housed, making sure that they can remain stably housed. For example, the Housing Trust Fund has long had a repair program functionality, so that we can add nonprofits can add shower bars and make some renovations so that people can access that instead of going into costly alternative care.
Right there.
Did you want to add to that?
I was going to say something. I actually just came from an event at Project Haven, which is the senior shelter that is opening up on the north side of Phoenix. It is the first in the nation transitional housing for homeless seniors that is only dedicated towards helping seniors. The first 40 people are scheduled to be moving in this summer, with 170 in by the end of the year. That is being run by CAS. That was partially funded a couple of years ago by a grant from ADOH, but there are operating dollars for that that are being provided in this budget that are and by the state of Arizona that are going to help that open this summer and have it full capacity, hopefully by the end of the year, providing construction and permitting goes good.
I'll add
So-
one more thing on that too. You know, when I toured Project Safe Haven back during COVID, one of the secret sauces was the case management. So being able to connect the people who experience being homeless for the very first time to case management, to then be able to help connect them to services that they need. And so the success rate was 80%. So people who experienced homelessness for the very first time and went into Project Safe Haven were rehomed within 80% within 60 days. So that's great success. So we are hoping that this model will continue that success.
All right. I just want to kind of broaden the question up to the governor. Is anything else? I mean, this is great for people who experience homelessness, lower income Arizonans. But we've still seen skyrocketing home increases here in Arizona overall. I mean, is there anything you're planning on doing? Is anything in this budget that helps people who can't afford homes right now get into homes? Or is it going to do anything to kind of cap in kind of inflation, skyrocketing home prices we've seen in the past several years?
Legislation is certainly one thing that we can do, but there needs to be a multifaceted approach. It's why I relaunched the Governor's Council, the Interagency Council on Housing and Homelessness, something like that. And so we'll listen to recommendations from them in terms of other action that we can take.
Right back there.
Hey, Governor, just seeing the kids' playground just made me think of this question, and I wanted to know about the status of the summer enrichment programs. They're about to hit summer, and I just wanted to know where that stands. You have a different view of who gets the money and what it's going to be directed towards. Just curious as to where is that in your...
We did an RFP for those funds. I'm looking at my budget director.
Yeah, we should be making awards in the next week or two.
Yep. Okay.
Great. Thanks. Okay.
Governor, you and the Attorney General share similar priorities overall. The Attorney General did express disappointment in the way this budget impacts her ability to enforce drug crime and some other issues. What can you say about her needs and the budget process and your communication with her office?
Again, this budget is not perfect and not everyone got everything that they needed or wanted, but there were increases for all of the statewide elected offices. And again, you know, going into next year, certainly we're going to look at what we could do better and how we can work better to prioritize more of those needs so that government can run the way it's supposed to. And we have a much bigger on-ramp than we had this year, and we're going to use that on-ramp for sure.
The increases being inflationary increases, is that what you're referring to, or are you saying in addition to inflationary funding, other increases?
I off the top of my head, I can't speak to specifics, but there were increases for all of those offices.
All right, last question, guys.
The city of Phoenix started clearing out the zone as largest homeless encampment last week. I'm wondering if you could address that specifically. What's your office doing to help? How is the $60 million going to help people on the streets right now?
The $60 million will help provide some of those needed services to start tackling this problem in a way the state hasn't come to the table before. So it's a really critical investment.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody.